Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about how to write review papers that actually get published, and more importantly, that deserve to be published. In resource-limited settings, reviews are one of the most powerful academic tools you have. You don't need funding. All you need is clarity. So why these review articles matter? They allow you to synthesize existing knowledge, clarify controversial or emerging topics, guide clinical practice and future research, and provide accessible scholarship in such settings. There are two common types of review articles. There are narrative reviews and there are scoping reviews, and each one of them serves a different purpose and audience. If you choose the wrong review type, it's one of the fastest ways to get your paper rejected. So, what is a narrative review? Narrative review is an argument. If you're afraid to take a position, don't write a narrative review. It's meant to be broad, interpretive synthesis of literature and to explain concepts, mechanisms, or controversies. It works with author-driven structure and argument, and is pretty common in orthopedics. Example of a high-quality narrative review. This is a textbook narrative review. The authors are not trying to include every paper ever written. They are trying to explain how immune cells instruct bone healing and why that matters clinically. Notice the structure: concept, mechanism, implication. That's what makes this publishable and a good review article. So the work by Molitorius et al. On current osteoporosis reports is succinct, valuable, and a good contribution to the system. Remember, it's not a systemic review, which means it's intentionally selective with the papers that the authors include in this review process. Now, what is a scoping review? Again, scoping review is not an opinion. It's a structured mapping of a concept. So you go systematically, you map existing literature, you identify the gaps, the trends, and the research volume. And you're methodologically transparent, and this is a kind of thing that precedes a systemic review. So, as an example of a high-quality scoping review, this is a work by Trico et al. At Journal of American College of Radiology. This paper is not trying to say AI works or doesn't work. It's answering a different question. What has been studied? How and where are the gaps? There's a distinction here that is critical to note. So there's hundreds of heterogeneous studies. You map the study types, their methods, and the gaps, and there is no pooled conclusion. That's one of the main differences with a narrative review. So editors reject good writings all the time because the article type is wrong. So choosing the right review type is very important. For narratives is when explaining or arguing a concept, and you use scoping review when mapping an emergent or fragmented field. The wrong choice weakens credibility. So you want to make sure you pick the right choice and work with it. So now the question is your topic worth a review? If your topic doesn't change understanding, it really shouldn't be written. Is the literature scattered or confusing? Is there a new technology, concept, or controversy that requires additional thought? Can your review change understanding or practice? These are the types of questions that you want to ask. For a narrative review, structure should mirror your argument, not the chronology of the papers. So you have a focused introduction, logical thematic sections, critical interpretation of studies, and clear conclusions and implications. So, how to write a strong narrative review? Summarizing papers is easy. Synthesizing ideas is hard. That's why good narrative reviews are rare. You're not simply regurgitating what other people have said. You're synthesizing ideas, and that is what makes these types of articles hard to write. So you want to be selective, but not exhaustive. You want to synthesize, not summarize. And you want to take a clear position based on the evidence that you present. why the narrative review works. This review succeeds because it has a thesis. It's not here what macrophages do. Its immune cells are not permissive. They are instructive. If you can't articulate your thesis in one sentence, you're not ready to write a narrative review. So you have a clear conceptual framework. You're selective, but authoritative citations are used, and concepts of biology to clinical outcomes clearly outlined in this paper. And also, you explicitly acknowledge the limitations of the work. For a scoping review, transparency is the currency here. You want to have a clear research question, explicit inclusion criteria. You want to have a systematic search strategy in charting and mapping of your results. As you can see, there's a clear difference in the approach between these two review types. So, writing a strong scoping review, for that, transparency again is key. Follow established frameworks, be transparent and reproducible, and focus on patterns and gaps, not on conclusions. So, why this type of review works? Scoping reviews are often abused. However, the presented example here is discipline. It doesn't overinterpret results. It doesn't pretend to guide practice. It maps the terrain so others can build stronger studies. So it's very explicit with the research question. It's very transparent with the inclusion criteria. The search strategy is very reproducible, and the output actually guides future systematic reviews as the next level of evaluation of the topic. As an example, narrative review, so immune regulation in fracture healing, why it matters, what is the emerging biology, what are the clinical implications, best studied as a narrative review, for instance. Now, for a scoping review, use of AI in orthopedic imaging, why it matters, rapidly expanding, heterogeneous literature, therefore it's better suited for a scoping review. Clarity and argument are central. If you cannot explain why your review matters in 30 seconds, neither can your reader. So remember, the review is an argument, not a list. Every section must support what your purpose is that you started with, and clear thinking leads to publishable work. Ethics and rigor, these are foundational. You avoid plagiarism, you cite primary sources, and be honest about limitations. Finally, before you write, ask yourself, what question am I answering? Why does this matter now? Who can change practice or thinking after this? If you cannot answer these questions, don't write it yet. And here are some key references that you could use as a guide as you think about writing review articles, either narrative or scoping, for work that you find interesting. Thank you.